Alright, this week we're going to finish up the quotation marks as far as punctuation that we were talking about, and then talk about sort of the special rules that go along with quotation marks. There's only really a couple extra rules that you need to know as far as quotation marks, apart from how they're used to punctuate small titles. First off though, let's review. I've noticed a couple of us still need this when we're going through sort of the practices that we were doing this last week. So we're going to review some of the basic quotation mark rules. Okay. 1. We know quotation marks enclose any spoken words or phrases. We see this in the story of dialogue. Quotation marks. So if you're writing, create a writing piece and you're writing dialogue, there would be quotation marks. Okay. Quotation marks enclose any passages taken word for word from the text. We've done this before. We know this because we've done this with our own paragraphs and our own writing. But anytime we take something from a text, it needs to have quotation marks around it because that's considered being quoted. And again, quotation marks enclose short word titles, which is what we've been practicing. Okay. Now, it's important to note when you have your quotation marks around what is being spoken, you only supposed to place the quotation marks around what is actually spoken. So any interrupting statements are not placed in the quotation mark. So I really love my English class with Amelia. The stories we read are really interesting. Well, no one's going to say, said Amelia, because Amelia is the one doing the speaking. So that's interrupting what she said. So notice the quotation marks start and end before it says said, and then start again after Amelia. Alright, so let's jump into the special rules. Okay. Anytime material inside the quote is already quoted, but needs to be placed inside a quotation mark, you would enclose the previously quoted material in single quotation marks. Okay. Everyone should read the article jittery, said Mr. Wopsle. Okay, we know article titles need to have quotation marks around them, but it's going to look awkward if I have a set of two quotes, set of two quotes, set of two quotes, set of two quotes. So instead, I put single quote marks around what was already quoted, and then I put my double quotation marks on the end of what is being said. So the only time you'll ever see two quotation marks is at the start of a quote and the end of a quote. And if something's being quoted inside that, then you're going to have the single quotation marks around it. Okay. Now, this is especially important when quoting dialogue from a text. So when we get to writing about Flowers for Algernon, or any of the other short stories that we've talked about, if there is dialogue, if you're using what someone else said as your evidence, then you're going to need to have single quote marks around what was actually said, and then make sure you have double quote marks on the end of the whole passage that you're quoting. Okay. And sometimes we have punctuation marks that go along with the quotation. And you know that you should always, if you're quoting, you should always go word for word and punctuation mark what the author is saying. Now, most punctuation, if the quote is on its own, if you're not pulling from a text, most punctuation goes inside the quotation mark. Okay. He went home, right? Sometimes we use that as sort of a euphemism. Okay. Notice the period is inside the quotation mark. She screamed, "Leave me alone!" Okay, the exclamation point inside of the quotation mark. Now, there are some exceptions to this. Right? 1. Semicolons and colons never go inside quotation marks. Okay. 2. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, so you gotta listen up to this one. When giving a direct quote as evidence, you would place the period after the citation, not inside the quotation mark. You actually don't need any punctuation at the end of your length you only need your period after your citation. So after you've given the author's last name and the page number, you're in that parenthesis, and then you put your period. And this will be practicing for next week. And then again, you will have your grammar quiz as usual. These are special rules of quotation marks, and make sure you are still aware of which titles get quotation marks, and if it's being spoken, that gets quotation marks, because you will be practicing and kind of testing on all of it.